I hid because I thought that my Tourette's made me ugly.
The screen is quiet, almost too quiet. A young woman walks down a city street, her shoulders tense, her breath steady. But then, without warning, her body jerks. Her voice bursts out words she never chose. Strangers turn, some laugh, some stare. And in that split second, the world sees her as a spectacle. This is Baylen Dupree, the 22-year-old behind Baylen Out Loud. The girl who turned her Tourette syndrome into a movement, who chose to fight shame with honesty, and who left millions of fans in tears with her bravery. Her journey is heartbreaking, yes, but it is also defiant, messy, funny, and achingly human. Today, we uncover the story the internet thought it knew, and the truth that will change the way you see her forever. The first signs rarely announce themselves. They flutter at the edge of a normal day, an eye blink that lingers, a throat clear that doesn't quite stop, a shoulder twitch that seems to arrive from nowhere. In Baylen Dupree's childhood, these were the whispers before the storm. For years, the patterns came and went, the way weather does, and like weather, no one could predict when the skies would open. The family folded the oddities into routine life. It's what families do: watch, worry, carry on. Only later would the name arrive, Tourette syndrome, and with it, the uneasy relief of definition. A diagnosis doesn't end anything. It starts the long work of understanding. Baylen would learn that Tourette involves motor and vocal tics that surge without permission, sometimes minor, sometimes all-consuming. In her story, the symptoms escalated in late adolescence, and by 18, she finally had an answer. The label did not fix her. It framed the fight. Those first whispers, in hindsight, were clues to the map of a life. They foreshadowed a future in which every room would hold two conversations, the one people speak and the one her body insists on. For a young woman in West Virginia, the diagnosis landed like an assignment. Learn your own storm, teach the world what thunder sounds like, and try to grow up while everything around you moves too fast. In 2020, the world shut its doors, and silence spread through neighborhoods like fog. Isolation magnified everything: our habits, our fears, our private battles. Baylen's tics escalated under the weight of lockdown, and with school and social life disrupted, she faced a question that can break anyone. Do I hide this or do I turn on a light? She opened the TikTok app, centered the frame, and began. At first, the videos were simple windows into a complicated day: baking with tics, walking with tics, laughing at tics when laughter was the only thing left. The honesty resonated. Millions of strangers clicked follow. They weren't just rubbernecking. They were learning to witness. Baylen wasn't minimizing her condition. She was reclaiming it, explaining that Tourette's isn't a punchline and that her most startling vocalizations, coprolalia, were as involuntary as a sneeze. In the noise of the internet, she carved a small, stubborn quiet. The comments told their own story. Some said they finally felt seen. Others said they finally understood. A few arrived to mock, but the algorithm can't measure the integrity of a person who keeps showing up anyway. In the dim year of a global pause, Baylen chose light, bright, shaky, unfiltered light, and it changed the trajectory of her life. Viral fame arrives with the grace of a flood. What Baylen posted with disarming humor, messy, chaotic, often very funny, was also a study in the ways we misunderstand what we fear. Audiences laughed with her, and sometimes at her, and in that thin border lived the tension that would shape everything to come. Humor became a pressure valve. She used it to puncture shame and explain the unexplainable. But humor can be a razor. As views climbed, so did the stakes. When a creator turns their body into curriculum, every tic becomes a lesson plan, every day a field trip for millions. The irony is that laughter helped people listen. Moments of joy disarmed the defensive instincts viewers carry into conversations about disability. Yet the internet's appetite is bottomless, and curiosity can become cruelty. Trolls asked if she was exaggerating. Some insisted the loudest things about her must be a performance. She kept filming anyway, threading empathy into a medium built to forget. If you look back at those early clips, you can see the shift, the move from "look what happened to me today" to "here's what this means." It's the pivot where autobiographer becomes advocate and the story becomes bigger than the person telling it. Television came calling with a simple proposition: let's widen the frame. If TikTok offered glimpses, a TLC series could offer context, mornings, and nights, family and fears, the whole scaffold of a life lived out loud. Baylen Out Loud premiered January 13, 2025, promising a candid portrait of a 22-year-old navigating an extreme case of Tourette's with her parents and 5 siblings in the wings and a fiancé who refused to blink in the glare. What the series delivered was not a miracle cure or a sanitized journey. It delivered the texture of reality, plans interrupted by tics, tender moments derailed by an involuntary outburst, then recovered with patience and love. It showed an everyday bravery, opening doors, getting into cars, walking into new rooms, all while knowing that a storm could arrive mid-sentence. It doesn't minimize the mess. It invites you to sit with it, and that invitation worked. Viewers tuned in not for spectacle but for recognition. Baylen Out Loud made a promise. If you stay, we'll demystify what scares you and dignify what's been ridiculed. Baylen wasn't reduced to a diagnosis. She was enlarged by her humanity. Early coverage captured that intent, an emotional dance, as one piece called it, where laughter and heartbreak share the same breath. Independence is a story told in small chores, changing address forms, figuring out the laundromat, warning an Uber driver before a tic startles them. Season 1 charts Baylen's move from her family home near Harper's Ferry to an apartment life in the D.C. area, a leap that turned routine tasks into acts of courage. She tells a magazine she loves a local bagel shop, that she's learning the city's rhythm, that the gym helps quiet both anxiety and tics. On screen, the move amplifies everything: distance from family, the friction of OCD rituals, the exquisite joy of handling a day on her own. There's a scene every fan remembers. She's giddy about a sunny morning, then yanked sideways by coprolalia, words she'd never choose pouring out uninvited. The camera doesn't flinch, neither does she. Recovery is the heartbeat. Breathe, apologize when needed, keep going. The show keeps circling this truth. Independence is not a finish line, but a loop, an everyday decision to try again. With a big, boisterous family just a call away, Baylen learns that on your own doesn't have to mean alone. Success is its own weather system. Within weeks, Baylen Out Loud found an audience far beyond her core following, becoming one of TLC's standout launches of the season. News items noted strong viewership and, soon after, a renewal for Season 2. That's the kind of validation any new series dreams of, and a heavier mantle for the human being at its center. Because when a show becomes important, its star becomes an emblem. Baylen was no longer just Baylen. She was representation, awareness, visibility. Those words can lift you, and they can press you flat. Every post, every episode tested the balance between educating the audience and protecting the self. She embraced the responsibility while reminding viewers she is more than her most audible symptom. That stance, the refusal to be flattened into a single note, may be the most subversive lesson of the series. It says, witness the tics, learn the science, and then let this person be a person. Love arrives like a hand reaching into the storm. Baylen met Colin on a dating app in 2022, and what began as a careful conversation became a steady duet. He learned her triggers and tells. She learned how to let someone stand in the splash zone without absorbing every wave. They built rituals, check-ins, Laughter breaks, 1,000 small kindnesses that make a life feel livable. In February 2025, they got engaged, a chapter-page turn that the show held up like a lantern. For audiences, it wasn't a fairy tale. It was a promise that intimacy and disability are not opposites. In interviews, she talks about how exercise softens the edges, how certain moments, private, tender, quiet the tics in ways that still surprise her. Viewers didn't need details. They needed permission to imagine tenderness where culture often imagines distance. If Baylen Out Loud is a syllabus on empathy, Colin is the unit on presence, how to love someone not despite their storm, but within it. The camera watches them grocery shop, tease, plan, and sometimes just breathe. It's ordinary, which is the point, because the most radical thing in a world addicted to spectacle is a couple building a normal day and choosing again and again to share it. What is Tourette's, really? Strip away the myths, and you find a neurodevelopmental condition marked by motor and vocal tics that rise and fall across a lifetime, often beginning in childhood. Some experience coprolalia, unwanted, socially inappropriate outbursts, which popular culture overemphasizes even though it's a minority symptom. Many live with coexisting conditions like OCD or anxiety. None of it is a choice. It's circuitry, not character. Baylen's tics can be startling. That startle is part of the work audiences must do, learning to separate shock from judgment. When she explains how an urge builds like an itch in the bones and releases only when the tic erupts, she is translating a body language few of us speak. The translation costs energy. That's why empathy matters. On camera and online, she returns. To basics. Tics are sudden. Triggers can be anything seen, heard, or remembered. Severity fluctuates. There are strategies, behavioral therapy, environmental tweaks, medication for some, but no silver bullet. The series threads in the science without drowning in jargon, which is the tightrope of good storytelling. Make the unfamiliar human and the human unforgettable. Brains are tricksy. They offer loopholes you don't see coming. For Baylen, exercise often softens her tics. Movement gives her nervous system another melody to follow. And in one candid podcast conversation, she shared a more intimate truth. During certain private, loving moments, the noise sometimes quiets. Listeners didn't hear sensationalism. They heard a young woman mapping her body honestly, refusing shame. This is what happens when you lift taboo. It becomes information. These pockets of calm don't erase the condition. They offer reprieve, proof that a life with Tourette's includes joy, novelty, and rest. The series uses these beats like breath marks in a musical score. After a hard scene, an ugly public encounter, a day derailed by compulsions, we get a moment of levity, a run in the park, a joke that makes the whole room exhale. Heartbreak isn't the only note. It's part of a chord that includes wonder, silliness, and the stubborn, ordinary glory of getting through the afternoon. Fame is a mirror that distorts. As Baylen's profile grew, a chorus of doubt tried to redraw her. Strangers, certain of their expertise, insisted that what they were seeing must be fabricated. They clipped moments out of context, mistook variability for mendacity, and demanded that a young woman prove her disability on command. That's not curiosity, it's cruelty. Baylen addressed it directly. In interviews and posts, she rejected the premise that her pain requires public notarization. She reminded followers that tics wax and wane, that triggers shift, that what looks like inconsistency is the nervous system doing what the nervous system does. Mainstream coverage noted her clapbacks and her insistence that the show be honest, precisely because bad faith skepticism thrives on omissions. The irony is painful. The more you reveal to be believed, the more pieces of yourself you must surrender. The series doesn't devote itself to litigating the internet. It chooses a different argument, an hour of unbroken life. Watch a day, stay with the hard parts, sit inside the dull ones. If after all that someone still chooses denial, the story is no longer about evidence. It's about their refusal to listen. To own a narrative is not to control it. It's to decide what you'll give. Baylen set boundaries. Yes to educating. No to being a mascot. Yes to sharing the messy middle. No to letting the timeline dictate her healing. Teen Vogue framed it plainly. She wants representation without erasure, visibility without being reduced to her loudest symptom. That paradox, be seen, but not only for that, is the grind of public advocacy. She kept saying, the quiet parts, out loud. That lockdown worsened her symptoms. That depression shadowed those months. That independence is equal parts thrilling and terrifying. That she hopes people will stop mimicking tics as a joke. When TLC renewed the show, the victory wasn't just ratings. It was proof that audiences can grow up on the fly, that empathy scales when a storyteller refuses to flinch. The camera follows her to the gym, to the river, to the grocery aisle, and we learn a new reflex. Not pity, not gawking, but presence. The heartbreak is not only in the tics, it's in the way a young woman must ask a rideshare driver for patience before she's offered hello. It's in the way a family learns a choreography where someone quietly takes the sharp knife from the counter when a motor tic flares. It's in the relief of a good day and the guilt of needing help 2 hours later. Viewers cried because they recognized the shape of that courage, trying again when no one sees the tries, but the healing is right there, braided into the ache. It's in Baylen's laugh when a line of coprolalic nonsense crashes into a river breeze and she shrugs. Well, that's my brain. It's in Colin's steady tone. No panic, no pity, just, you okay? It's in a parent's hand, not smothering, just close. The show keeps insisting on a lesson we forget. You can hold sorrow and joy in the same fist. That doesn't make the sorrow smaller. It makes the joy honest. And when the credits roll, you don't remember a diagnosis. You remember a person who refused to vanish. Baylen Dupree did not choose the soundtrack of her nervous system. She chose what to do with it. She chose to teach, to risk being misunderstood, to love publicly, to move out and mess up and try again with the camera running. Baylen Out Loud turns disability from spectacle into story, from noise into music you can actually hear. If her journey left you in tears, maybe it's because you saw in all that bravery and exhaustion some version of your own fight to be fully known. If this documentary-style breakdown helped you see the person beyond the diagnosis, do me a favor, subscribe, like, and share this video so more people meet Baylen with compassion. Drop a comment with the moment that hit you hardest, or a question about Tourette's you want answered in a future video. Empathy grows when we talk to each other. Let's keep the conversation going.